I used to think our relationship was the kind people secretly envied. Sophie and I had been together for almost 3 years. We didn't fight much. We didn't scream or throw things or block each other on social media just to unblock a week later. We were calm. Predictable. Comfortable. The kind of couple that got invited to double dates because everyone assumed we were solid. We lived together in a small apartment that always smelled like coffee in the mornings and her vanilla candles at night. We had routines: Sunday grocery shopping, late-night Netflix, brushing our teeth side by side while talking about nothing important. I thought routines meant stability. I thought stability meant love. Looking back, I realize how wrong I was. The night everything changed didn't feel dramatic at first. There was no storm outside, no ominous music playing in the background. We were sitting at the kitchen table, half-eaten pasta between us, both scrolling on our phones like we always did. Sophie was unusually quiet. I noticed it because she's not a quiet person. She fills silence naturally, random thoughts, jokes, stories about people I don't know. That night, she just kept poking at her food. Finally, she looked up and said, "Can I ask you something, without you getting mad?" That sentence alone should have warned me. "Sure," I said, already feeling my chest tighten. She took a deep breath, like she was about to confess to a crime. "Have you ever thought about opening our relationship?" The words didn't register immediately. They floated in the air between us, strange and out of place, like a language I didn't speak. "Opening it how?" I asked, even though I knew exactly what she meant. She shrugged, trying to sound casual. "You know, seeing other people. Just physically. No emotions. I still love you. This wouldn't change that." I stared at her, searching her face for a smile, for a sign this was some kind of joke. There was none. My mind went blank. Then it filled with questions I didn't want to ask. Why? Since when? Is there already someone else? Instead, I said, "Why would you want that?" She hesitated. "I just feel like I've never really explored. I got into a relationship so young. Sometimes I wonder what I'm missing." Every word felt like a small cut. "So you're bored," I said quietly. She shook her head fast. "No. Not bored with you. Just curious. And I think if we're really strong, this could actually bring us closer." I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Or walk out. Instead, I sat there, nodding slowly, like I was processing something logical and reasonable. The truth was, I was terrified. Terrified that if I said no, she'd do it anyway. Terrified that if I said no, I'd be the controlling boyfriend. Terrified that I was already losing her. "I don't know," I said. "That's a lot." She reached across the table and took my hand. "We don't have to rush. I just wanted to be honest with you." Her hand felt warm. Familiar. Safe. And yet, something inside me cracked. That night, after she fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. She was curled up next to me, breathing softly, one leg draped over mine like she always did. I wondered if this was the last time she'd sleep next to me without thinking about someone else. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A notification lit up her screen. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The seed had already been planted. Over the next few days, Sophie acted lighter. Almost excited. Like she'd said something out loud that had been living in her head for months. She'd mention communication and trust and how a lot of couples do this now. She sent me articles. Podcasts. TikToks from smiling people talking about how open relationships saved their love. Every time, she'd add, "But only if you're comfortable. I don't want to pressure you." And every time, I felt more pressure. I started questioning myself. Was I being old-fashioned? Insecure? Possessive? What kind of man says no to his girlfriend's personal growth? A week later, we were back at the same kitchen table. She looked at me with hopeful eyes. Have you thought about it? I swallowed. My heart was pounding. I don't want to see other people, I said honestly. I want you. She smiled softly. That's okay. You don't have to. That should have been my answer right there. But instead, I heard myself say, if this is something you really need. I don't want to be the reason you resent me. Her face lit up. She hugged me like I'd just given her a gift. And in that moment, I realized something terrible. I didn't agree because I wanted an open relationship. I agreed because I was afraid of losing her. That was the first mistake. And it wouldn't be the last. The first thing Sophie did after we opened our relationship wasn't go on a date. It was download apps. I watched from the couch as she sat next to me, scrolling through the app store like she was picking a game to play. Tinder. Bumble. Hinge. One by one. Her fingers moved fast, confident, like she'd been waiting for permission. She glanced at me. You okay? Yeah, I lied. She smiled and started choosing photos. Photos I had taken. Photos from trips we went on together. Pictures where she was wearing dresses I'd complimented, standing in places that meant something to us. I realized then that this wasn't just about meeting new people. It was about reintroducing herself to the world, without me. Within minutes, her phone began buzzing. Match after match. She laughed softly, surprised. Wow. I didn't expect this. I did. That night, she stayed up late, messaging strangers while I pretended to watch TV. Every now and then she'd show me something on her screen. This guy's funny. This one's kind of intense. Ew, no. I nodded, smiled, played the supportive boyfriend. Inside, I felt like I was shrinking. The first date happened 3 days later. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair, wearing a black dress I hadn't seen in months. How do I look? She asked. Great, I said. Because she did. Because I still loved her. She kissed me on the cheek. I'll be home late. Don't wait up. The door closed behind her, and the apartment went silent. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing, imagining everything. I told myself this was temporary. That once the curiosity faded, she'd come back to me. But the dates didn't stop. They multiplied. She started coming home glowing, energized, talkative, alive in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. He was actually really nice, she'd say, kicking off her shoes. We didn't even hook up, we just talked. It's kind of fun meeting new people. Fun. Meanwhile, my world got smaller. I stopped going out. I stopped texting friends. I stopped being interesting. I tried downloading an app too, just to feel like this was balanced. I made a profile, stared at it for 20 minutes, then deleted it. I didn't want other women. I wanted my girlfriend back. Weeks passed. Her phone was never face down anymore. Notifications lit up constantly, names I didn't recognize, messages she didn't hide. She changed too. New clothes. New perfume. Gym more often. Less time with me. One night, while she was getting ready for another date, I asked, "Do you think we should set some boundaries?" She paused, mascara halfway done. Like what? I don't know. Maybe fewer dates? Or certain days just for us? She sighed. I thought we agreed to keep this open and honest. Boundaries kind of defeat the purpose. The purpose. That night, I went for a walk alone. The city felt cold, unfamiliar. Couples passed me, laughing, holding hands. I felt like a ghost in my own life. The breaking point came one Friday evening. She was late again. Way later than she said she'd be. I texted her once. No reply. Then my phone buzzed. Having such a great time tonight, smiling face with smiling eyes. That was it. No explanation. No reassurance. Just a smiley face. I stared at the screen until it went dark. When she finally came home, she was humming. Happy. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want the answers. I went to bed facing the wall. She slid in next to me, kissed my shoulder, and whispered, "Thank you for being so understanding." I didn't respond. Because deep down, I was starting to understand something else. This wasn't about freedom. This was about replacement. And I was slowly being phased out of my own relationship. At some point, I realized I wasn't jealous of the men Sophie was seeing. I was jealous of the version of her they were getting. They got her attention. Her curiosity. Her excitement. I got updates. Leftovers. Silence. I tried to talk to her. Really talk. One evening, when she wasn't rushing out or glowing from a date, I sat across from her on the couch and said, "I don't think this is working for me." She didn't look surprised. Just tired. "What do you mean?" she asked, even though her tone said she already knew. "I feel like I'm losing you," I said. "I feel invisible." She leaned back, crossed her arms. "That's not fair. I've been very open with you." "I don't care about open," I replied. "I care about us." She exhaled slowly, like I was missing something obvious. "This is what we agreed to. That doesn't mean I'm not allowed to feel anything." She stared at me for a moment, then said the sentence that finally broke something inside me. "That's literally the point." I blinked. "The point of what?" "Feeling uncomfortable," she said. "Growing. Challenging old ideas about relationships. You're supposed to feel this." I laughed quietly. Not because it was funny, because if I didn't, I might have cried. "So me feeling like shit is part of the process?" I asked. She shrugged. "In a way, yeah." After that conversation, something changed. I stopped initiating talks. Stopped asking questions. Stopped trying to compete with ghosts. She didn't notice. Her life continued to expand. Mine kept shrinking. She started spending more nights out. Sometimes she wouldn't come home at all, texting me hours later that she'd crashed at a friend's. I knew better than to ask which friend. I started timing things without meaning to. How long she took to reply. How quickly she dressed up. How little time she spent looking at me. One afternoon, I met her at a park near our apartment. She was late, as usual. When she arrived, she was typing on her phone, smiling. "Who's that?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Just someone I'm seeing." Seeing. Not dating. Not sleeping with. Seeing. "I need to say something," I told her. She finally put the phone away, annoyed. "Can it wait?" "No." I told her everything. How I felt replaced. How I felt stupid. How agreeing to this had slowly destroyed my confidence. When I finished, she was quiet. Then she said, "I think you're romanticizing monogamy." That was her answer. No apology. No reassurance. Just a theory about why I was broken. That night, I lay in bed next to her, listening to her breathe, wondering how someone could be physically so close and emotionally unreachable. I started questioning my worth. Maybe I really was boring. Maybe I was holding her back. Maybe love was supposed to hurt like this. 3 weeks passed like that. 3 weeks of swallowing emotions. 3 weeks of pretending I was okay. 3 weeks of watching her fall asleep smiling at her phone. Then came the message. I was at work when my phone buzzed. "Going to be out late tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back something I never thought I'd say. "Okay." No questions. No arguments. Just acceptance. That night, I didn't go home right away. I walked the city until my feet hurt. I watched people live their lives without knowing mine was falling apart. And somewhere between the third coffee and the empty streets, I felt it. Not anger. Not jealousy. Emptiness. When I finally came home, the apartment was dark. Quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed and realized something terrifying. I didn't miss her the way I used to. I missed who I was before this. And that was the moment I understood. If nothing changed soon, I was going to disappear completely. Emma had been in our lives long before everything went wrong. She was Sophie's best friend, the kind that showed up unannounced, borrowed clothes without asking, and knew all the stories from before I existed. We'd never been especially close, but we were friendly. Comfortable. Safe. Or so I thought. The first real conversation we had happened accidentally. Sophie was out, again, and Emma stopped by the apartment to grab something she'd left earlier. When she realized Sophie wasn't home, she hesitated at the door. "You okay?" she asked. It was such a simple question. So normal. And for some reason, it hit harder than anything Sophie had said in weeks. "I'm fine," I replied automatically. Emma raised an eyebrow. "You don't look fine." We ended up sitting at the kitchen table, the same one where Sophie had asked the question. Coffee between us. Silence stretching. "I'm not trying to get involved," Emma said carefully, "but how are you really doing with all this?" I stared into my cup. "I don't think I'm doing it right." She let out a short laugh. Not amused. "There is no right way to slowly watch your partner replace you." I looked up. "You think that's what this is?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes." That single word felt like oxygen. Emma wasn't gentle after that. She didn't sugarcoat things or talk about growth and freedom. "This isn't an open relationship," she said. "It's a one-sided exit strategy." I tried to defend Sophie. "Out of habit. Out of loyalty. She says it's just physical." Emma shook her head. "Then why is she happier with them than with you?" That shut me up. Over the next few weeks, Emma checked in more often. Texts. Quick calls. Short visits when Sophie was out. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing secret. Just presence. She listened. Really listened. She remembered things I said. She didn't minimize my feelings or turn them into a lesson. One night, we sat on the floor of the living room, backs against the couch, talking about nothing and everything. "She wasn't always like this," Emma said quietly. "But she hates feeling tied down. She just didn't want to admit it." I laughed bitterly. Guess I helped her avoid that conversation. Emma looked at me. "You didn't help. You sacrificed yourself." That word stuck with me. Sacrificed. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The way Emma watched me when I spoke. The way she got angry for me when I described certain moments. The way she never defended Sophie, not once. One evening, after a particularly rough day, I told Emma I was scared. "Scared of what?" she asked. "That if Sophie suddenly decided to choose me again, I wouldn't know how to trust it." Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "She won't." Not cruel. Not hopeful. Certain. That night, when Emma got up to leave, she stopped by the door. "You deserve someone who chooses you when you're not in the room," she said. After she left, I sat alone, replaying those words over and over. I tried to ignore what was happening between us. I told myself it was just emotional support. Trauma bonding. Anything but what it was starting to feel like. But feelings don't ask permission. They arrive quietly. Then all at once. The moment it became undeniable was the night Sophie didn't come home. No text. No explanation. Emma showed up instead. She took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. She just sat next to me. At some point, she said softly, "I need to tell you something, before this gets confusing." I turned to her. I felt something for you for a while, she admitted. I didn't plan to. I didn't want to. And I would have kept it to myself if I thought you were actually okay. My heart started racing. But watching you disappear like this, she continued, voice shaking slightly, it hurts more than I expected. I didn't move. Didn't speak. She stood up quickly. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Emma, I said, my voice barely steady. You're the only person who's made me feel seen in months. She looked at me then. Really looked. And in that moment, the line between friend and something else disappeared. Neither of us crossed it that night. But we both knew it was there. Waiting. I told myself I wouldn't do anything. That I would take the high road. That I would be better than this whole mess. But lines don't disappear just because you refuse to look at them. They fade. And one day, you realize you're already standing on the other side. The night it happened wasn't planned. That's what makes it dangerous. Sophie had been gone all weekend. A text here and there. Nothing substantial. I stopped asking questions because I'd stopped believing the answers mattered. Emma came over Sunday evening. She brought wine. I didn't ask why. We sat at the kitchen table, always that table, and talked quietly, like the walls could hear us. We laughed at things that weren't funny. We avoided the obvious. At some point, Emma looked at me and said, "You don't look like someone who's in a relationship." "I don't feel like one," I replied. The silence stretched. "I need to know something," she said carefully. "If Sophie walked through that door right now and said she wanted to close the relationship, would you believe her?" I thought about it. Really thought. "No," I said. Emma nodded, like she already knew. We moved to the couch. The wine disappeared faster than it should have. Our shoulders touched. Neither of us moved away. "I'm not doing this to hurt her," Emma said quietly. "I know," I said. "And I'm not doing it to get back at anyone." That was the truth. The first kiss was hesitant. Almost apologetic. Like we were both waiting for lightning to strike. It didn't. Instead, there was relief. Like finally breathing after holding it in for too long. I expected guilt. Panic. Regret. None of it came. What I felt was clarity. We didn't rush. We didn't pretend this was casual. We acknowledged what it meant, even if we didn't say it out loud. After, we lay there in silence. Emma's head on my chest. The apartment still. Too still. "This changes things," she whispered. "I know. And you're okay with that?" I stared at the ceiling, thinking about Sophie's smiley face texts. Her excitement. Her absence. "I think things were already changed," I said. Emma didn't stay the night. That mattered to both of us. The next morning, Sophie came home. She looked tired. Happy. Distracted. "Hey," she said casually, dropping her bag. "Sorry I was gone so long." "It's fine," I replied. And for the first time, it actually was. Something in me had shifted. I wasn't waiting anymore. Over the next few days, Sophie started acting different. She asked where I was going. Who I was texting. Why I seemed lighter. The irony wasn't lost on me. One evening, she asked, "Are you seeing someone?" I looked at her. Really looked. "I thought that was kind of the point," I said. She didn't laugh. That was when I realized something important. She had wanted freedom. Not equality. The shift didn't happen all at once. It started with questions that sounded casual but weren't. "Who were you texting? Why are you smiling at your phone? You've been out a lot lately." I answered honestly. I didn't hide anything. And that seemed to bother Sophie more than lies ever could. She started coming home earlier. Canceling dates. sitting closer to me on the couch like she was reclaiming territory. One night, she reached for my phone without asking. I didn't stop her. She scrolled in silence. Her jaw tightened. Her fingers slowed. When she handed it back, her voice was flat. "So, you're seeing Emma now?" "Yes," I said. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Emma? My best friend?" "You didn't say friends were off limits," I replied calmly. Her face hardened. "That's different." "How?" I asked. "She knows us," Sophie snapped. "She knows me. This feels targeted. Targeted. Like my pain had been strategic." "You've slept with strangers," I said. "Men whose names I didn't even know." "That's not emotional," she shot back. "This is." There it was. The rule she'd never mentioned. The boundary that only applied to me. From that moment on, she unraveled. She checked my location constantly. Asked when I'd be home. Showed up places, by coincidence. Once, she walked into a cafe where Emma and I were sitting. She smiled too wide. Sat down without asking. Put her hand on my arm like a warning. Emma stayed calm. Too calm. After Sophie left, Emma said quietly, "She doesn't want you back. She wants to win." Sophie started talking about closing the relationship. Not apologetically. Urgently. "Maybe we rushed this," she said one night. "Maybe we should pause, just for a while." "A while?" I asked. "Until things settle." "Things?" "Meaning me." I asked her, "Would you be saying this if I wasn't seeing someone too?" She didn't answer. That was answer enough. Her jealousy wasn't romantic. It was possessive. She didn't miss me. She missed control. One evening, she broke down crying in the kitchen, the same kitchen where it all began. "I feel like I'm losing you," she sobbed. I watched her, strangely calm. "That's how I felt for months," I said. She looked at me like she'd never heard that before. "I didn't think it would hurt like this," she whispered. I almost laughed. Of course she didn't. She'd never been on this side. Sophie chose a quiet evening to finally say it. No tears. No shouting. Just that careful tone people use when they're afraid the wrong word might ruin everything. She cooked dinner. Real dinner. Not something rushed between messages and plans. She even lit a candle, like we were pretending to be us again. Halfway through eating, she put her fork down. "I want to talk," she said. I nodded. I already knew what was coming. "I think we should close the relationship," she continued. "This experiment, it went too far." Experiment. Like I'd been a variable. She leaned forward. "I miss us. I miss how we were. I think we can fix this if we just stop everything else." I looked at her face, really looked. For the first time in months, she was scared. Not of losing me emotionally. Of losing access. "What changed?" I asked. She hesitated. "I realized what we have is special." "When did you realize that?" I pressed. She didn't answer. I filled in the silence for her. "When I started seeing someone too." Her jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "It's accurate," I said calmly. She reached for my hand. I let her take it, but it felt foreign. "I don't want anyone else," she said. "I want you." I believed she meant it. I just didn't believe it would last. "You wanted freedom," I said. "You fought for it. You convinced me this was growth." She nodded slowly. "And now you want safety," I continued. "Because freedom stopped being fun." Her eyes filled with tears. "People are allowed to change their minds." Yes, I agreed. But they're not allowed to rewind other people. That's when she broke. She cried the way people cry when they're losing something they thought was guaranteed. I never meant to hurt you, she sobbed. I know, I said. And I meant it. That was the most painful part. She didn't hurt me out of cruelty. She hurt me out of indifference. I told her the truth then. All of it. That I'd felt invisible. That I'd agreed out of fear. That watching her choose everyone else had slowly erased me. She listened in silence. When I finished, she whispered, "So what are you saying?" I took a breath. I'm saying that even if we closed it tomorrow, I wouldn't feel chosen. I'd feel reclaimed. That word landed hard. She pulled her hand away. So you're choosing her? She asked. I shook my head. I'm choosing myself. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe she didn't. Because the version of me that would have said yes was gone. And she was the one who helped kill it. I watched Sophie shrink back like I'd slapped her. Her eyes went wide, her mouth opening and closing like she was trying to speak but couldn't find the words. What? She finally managed. Her voice trembled, half disbelief, half rage. I sat on the couch, arms folded, feeling an unexpected calm wash over me. This was it, the moment the tables turned. Yes, I said, slow and deliberate. I've been seeing someone. Her face paled, almost white under the dim light of the living room lamp. She shook her head, like if she denied it hard enough, it would vanish. You slept with Emma, she whispered. The name hung in the air like a guillotine. Yes, I repeated, more firmly. And it wasn't an accident. It wasn't some rebound or a game. She actually cares about me. I actually care about her. Sophie's hands trembled as she pushed herself up from the couch. How could you? She's my best friend. You betrayed me. I didn't flinch. I didn't need to. I wanted her to feel it, the way I had felt watching her act like she was free to do whatever she wanted while I stayed home, pretending everything was normal. You told me to be open, I said. You wanted freedom, Sophie. You wanted to date other people. And I did. Emma showed me something you forgot existed: respect, care, attention. Things I never got from you in weeks. She started pacing, hands through her hair, muttering under her breath. This isn't fair. This isn't how it's supposed to work. You can't just. I cut her off. No, Sophie. That's exactly how it works. You wanted to explore. You wanted me to be okay with it. You wanted permission to do whatever you wanted. Well, congratulations. I did the same thing. And now you're feeling it. Her breathing got heavier. She slammed a hand against the wall. I can't believe this. You played me. I laughed softly, not mockingly, but with the quiet satisfaction of someone who finally regained control. I didn't play you. You played yourself. You thought freedom meant everything was yours for the taking. But freedom works both ways. Sophie's voice rose. So what now? Are you leaving me for her? I shook my head. I'm not leaving. I've already left, emotionally. I've been gone for weeks while you were out there, meeting a new guy every night, thinking I'd still be waiting. I just didn't know it yet. Her face twisted in shock. You're telling me you've been with my best friend, and you're okay with this? I leaned back. I'm more than okay. I'm relieved. I'm happy, actually. Because I finally feel seen. And that's something you stopped giving me the moment you started this open relationship. The silence that followed was suffocating. Sophie's lips moved, but no words came. I watched her unravel in real time, the confident, controlling woman I knew replaced by someone fragile, exposed, and desperate. You think this makes you the victim? I said quietly. You've been choosing others while I stayed, pretending it didn't hurt. You're finally tasting it. That's all this is. Sophie sank into the couch across from me, her hands covering her face. I didn't think it would go this far. I thought we could just have fun. I didn't mean for it to hurt me. I supplied. No, you didn't mean to. But that's what happened. And now it's my turn to be honest. My turn to live my life the way I want, not the way you dictate. She lifted her head, tears streaking her face. But, you're choosing her over me. Right? I shook my head again. I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing someone who wants me entirely, who respects me, who doesn't need me to approve of their every whim. Emma has been honest, caring, present. You haven't. Her chest heaved. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd just let it happen. You thought wrong, I said. I was supposed to be okay with being hurt, with watching you have a life I wasn't part of. No. I drew the line. And now, you're seeing what it feels like. She turned away, staring out the window, shaking slightly. I could feel her mind racing, trying to strategize, trying to fix the unfixable. I need time, she muttered. I need to think about us. I nodded. Take all the time you need. But understand this, things have changed. I've changed. We've changed. And there's no going back to the way it was. Her shoulders slumped. She didn't argue. She didn't yell. Just quiet, broken, and, finally, aware. I stood, grabbed my coat, and moved toward the door. I'm not leaving you alone. But I am leaving you where you need to be, facing reality. Facing yourself. Facing the consequences of what you started. Sophie's voice barely rose above a whisper. You could have talked to me. We could have. Talked? I interrupted. We did. 4 weeks. I talked. You ignored. You went out there, living life on your terms. Now it's my turn. And I'm not apologizing for it. I walked to the hallway, feeling the weight lift from my chest. For months, I'd carried the anxiety, the fear, the sense that I was failing just by wanting her to want me. Now, I had reclaimed myself. Behind me, Sophie sat on the couch, silent, shattered, and staring at the floor. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The lessons were clear, and the consequences were unfolding exactly as they should. The open relationship was over, in theory. But the game had changed. And I was no longer a pawn. The days that followed felt like waking up from a long, suffocating dream. Sophie didn't call. She didn't text. I didn't reach out. Silence stretched between us like a vast, invisible wall, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel anxious. I felt free. Emma and I spent time together, mostly quiet, mostly comfortable. Not the fiery, chaotic excitement of rebellion, but the gentle warmth of mutual care. A weekend at the lake, where we fished and did nothing but talk, a coffee shop in the city, where I realized she remembered the smallest details about me I'd never voiced aloud. She listened. She remembered. She cared. And in that, I found the calm I hadn't known I needed. I saw Sophie once, by accident. She was at the corner cafe we used to frequent, the one with the mismatched chairs and the scent of old coffee beans that always made me nostalgic. She didn't approach me. She didn't even look directly. But I saw the shadow in her eyes, regret, awareness, loss. And I didn't feel triumph. I didn't even feel anger. I felt detached. Like the final page of a book I had read 1,000 times, and now, it was over. I kept replaying our final conversation in my mind. The way she shrank, the way she couldn't form words, the way she finally saw the consequences of her choices. That moment, sharp, raw, honest, had changed everything. I realized that betrayal wasn't just about acts. It was about attention, respect, emotional investment. And when those vanish, there's no repair. Not truly. Emma had her own history. Not perfect. Not without scars. But her scars didn't try to control me or guilt me into compliance. They were hers, acknowledged, accepted, and lived with. And somehow, that made her stronger in ways Sophie had never been. We laughed one evening as we cooked dinner, simple pasta and a messy sauce on the counter. Emma tried to stir the pot, spilled sauce on her apron, and laughed. I laughed too, a deep, honest sound that came from relief as much as joy. It struck me, I hadn't laughed like that in months. Not around Sophie. Not at home. Not in the quiet of our apartment, weighed down by pretenses and invisible chains. You look happy, she said, her tone careful, almost tentative. Like she was testing the air to see if happiness could last. I am, I admitted, stirring the sauce. I'm finally, myself again. She smiled softly, leaning against the counter. I'm glad. You deserve that. And I did. I deserved it. I deserved someone who chose me, truly, completely. Someone who didn't treat love like a game, or freedom like a license to wound. Emma didn't ask for permission, she asked for honesty, and she gave me the same. That was a world apart from the years I'd spent tiptoeing around Sophie's whims. Later that night, I walked home under the streetlights, the city quiet except for distant sirens and the faint hum of tires on wet asphalt. I thought of Sophie, of Emma, of myself. The lessons were stark, unavoidable. Life didn't pause for mistakes. Love didn't excuse negligence. Freedom came with responsibility. And sometimes, the only way to reclaim yourself was to let everything else fall away. I didn't dwell on revenge. I didn't savor Sophie's loss. That would have been hollow. What mattered was that I had my life back. My choices. My peace. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for approval, forgiveness, or reconciliation. I was living. The weeks turned into months. Emma and I grew closer, not in a rush, but with a steady, quiet intimacy. We discovered routines, inside jokes, habits that made the ordinary feel extraordinary. Our connection wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it was steady. It was real. I ran into Sophie again once, at a mutual friend's party. She looked changed. Not just the surface, but something in her eyes, humility, regret, maybe even a touch of understanding. We exchanged polite nods. No words were necessary. The past was the past. That night, walking home with Emma, I felt a subtle shift inside me. The weight of betrayal, heartbreak, anger, it hadn't disappeared completely, but it had softened into something manageable. A memory. A lesson. A warning. And I understood, finally, that healing wasn't about erasing pain. It was about using it to find clarity, strength, and self-respect. Emma squeezed my hand. You okay? She asked. I smiled. Better than okay. I'm free. I'm alive. Freedom. That word had haunted me when Sophie demanded it. It had been a source of fear, anxiety, uncertainty. But now, I understood it in its true form. Freedom wasn't permission to hurt. Freedom wasn't license to betray. Freedom was the ability to choose, to honor yourself, to seek and give love with honesty and respect. I glanced at Emma, at the soft glow of the streetlights reflecting in her eyes. I thought of the long nights spent worrying, wondering if I'd ever feel secure, loved, truly seen again. And now, I didn't have to wonder. The open relationship had been a catalyst, yes. Painful, chaotic, exhausting. But it had forced me to confront reality, confront myself, and ultimately, choose a path that aligned with my heart. And for that, I was grateful. We reached our apartment building. She leaned in, kissed me lightly on the cheek, and whispered, I'm glad it's us. Me too, I said, holding her hand as we walked inside. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about the past, about Sophie, about what went wrong. I was thinking about the future, quiet, steady, real. A future that belonged entirely to me, to Emma, to what we could build together. And in that moment, under the soft glow of the hallway lights, I knew something fundamental. Betrayal had ended, but love, honest, mutual, nurturing love, had begun. This was my new chapter. My choice. My life. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I was exactly where I was meant to be.